Welcome to my session. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. And welcome to my session, Telling Stories with Excel Power Map. And for those of you who are wondering, Excel Power Map is the new name for GeoFlow. So you haven't come to the wrong session. It's still the same session, just that the name has been changed. So before we start, let me introduce myself. My name is Jason Thomas. I am a Microsoft Certified Solutions Expert in SQL BI 2012, and I've been working as a BI consultant for the past 7+ years. I work as a data analytics architect in Mariner. We are an end-to-end BI solutions company, primarily focused on Microsoft technologies, and we are based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. And in case you're interested, you can send me queries or questions at jason.thomas@mariner-usa.com. Now, my primary focus is on the analytics and reporting side, even though I have worked across the entire BI stack. And so I tend to usually post interesting things or findings or articles at my blog. You can read more of my work at www.sqljason.com. And other times I also like to tweet and spend a lot of time, trying to learn from my peers and connecting with my peers. So in case you're in Twitter, don't forget to follow me at SQLJason. Apart from that, I just became a father to a new baby girl. This is my first child. She was born just 10 days back. And as parents, especially first-time parents, you can understand. So if you find me a little bit disoriented or kind of confusing, just forgive me. It's just my first time having a baby, taking care of her. So that's it. And sorry for the thick Indian accent. I'll try to go slow and enunciate more, but just in case, sorry for that. Apart from this, you can also, if you're going to be coming at the PASS Summit 2013, which is going to be in Charlotte, the city that I am in, I've got 2 sessions. Don't forget to join me there. I've got a session on geospatial analytics using Microsoft BI, where I'll be talking about the entire Microsoft BI stack. And primarily we'll be focusing on geospatial analytics and how we can do it using the Microsoft BI toolset. I've also got a second session where it's more like a case study. I would be talking on Jon Snow's Cholera map, and you can see a sneak preview of it in today's session. I actually have a demo of it using Excel Power Map. And just the day after, we have got the SQL Saturday, which I am organizing in Charlotte. So it's going to be in October 19th, free training. You just have to register. You don't have to pay anything. And you've got around 48 sessions from 48 well-known speakers. So you might want to attend that too. With that said, let me take you to the agenda for the day. So initially, we'll be talking about the importance of visualizations and why use storytelling as a technique in visualizations. After that, I'll be giving you an introduction to Excel Power Map. We'll be going through what Power Map is, what are the functionalities and features that are present in Power Map. And after that, I've got 3 demos which would serve like as an example of how you can use Excel Power Map to tell stories with your data. All right, let's start. So nowadays, we got a lot of data available to us. I still remember when I started my career 7 years back, that was the time when I was building cubes and analysis services and data warehouses using SQL Server. I used to check with them, check with my clients, do you need this particular column? Adding these set of columns would increase the space, the storage, and do you really need them? The answers that I would typically get was, I don't think we are going to be analyzing by that column today, so let's just avoid that. If you keep that, our storage increases and we'll have to pay more for it. So I don't think we need that column. But nowadays, when I ask the same question to my clients, what they say is, you know what, just keep it there. We don't want it today, but who knows, we might want it tomorrow. And the cost for storage is decreasing day by day. Nowadays, it's very cheap to get terabytes of data or terabytes of storage space. So more and more clients want to keep the information. They don't want to lose anything, just in case that they might be able to glean some information from it tomorrow. Now we've even got more options, like you can even push your data into the cloud, so you don't have to spin up servers and pay for it. You can actually pay for just what you're using. So that's become even more cheaper. Now with the growing amount of data, data visualization becomes more and more important, because as humans, we can't find patterns or trends or things like that by manually sifting through the data. Computers are always better than that. So also, it's much more easier to get information if it's presented in the form of a visualization. And just to give you an example of how much data that we are getting nowadays, I just pulled in an interesting stat. In 2000, the Sloan Digital Sky Survey collected more astronomical data in the first few weeks than all data collected in the history of astronomy. Just think of it. Astronomy is one of the oldest sciences in human history. You have had people having knowledge about the stars and all from millenniums. So this new technology, the Sloan Digital Sky Survey, collected more data in just first few weeks than in the entire history of astronomy. And even more interesting, the successor to this, which is called the Large Synoptic Survey Telescope, and it's anticipated to go live in 2016, that is expected to acquire that amount of data just in 5 days. That's the amount of data that we're going to be getting in the future. So just to keep things in perspective. Also, an excellent visualization tells a story through the graphical depiction of statistical information. Now, scientific researchers show that a person, you can hold the attention of a person for only 3 seconds. Basically, you've got 3 seconds to either get a person interested in the thing that you're trying to tell or to lose that person completely. Now, if you just pass a set of numbers to a person, first of all, to make sense of it, he has to analyze it. And going through a lot of numbers, I mean, that's not something human brains are really adept at. And most likely, you're not going to come up with an analysis in 3 seconds and you're going to lose that person. But with visualizations, you'll be able to tell a story. I mean, you can have a group of visualizations which start telling a story one by one, where you start showing some trends, analysis, step by step. And with this form of depiction, you would be able to captivate your audience. You would be able to hold the attention of your audience for a longer time. A person or a very successful proponent of this type of depiction is Hans Rosling. Dr. Hans Rosling is a professor of global health, and he's a Swedish professor of global health, and he's been in TED Talks and all. What sets Rosling apart isn't just his apt observations of broad social and economic trends, but the stunning way he presents them. Guaranteed, you have never seen data presented like this. By any logic, a presentation that tracks global health and poverty trends should be, in a word, boring. But in Rosling's hand, data sings, trends come to life, and the big picture, which is usually very hazy at best, snaps into sharp focus. I've actually posted I've posted a link on Hans Rosling and in my reference section, and I highly recommend you seeing a couple of his talks where you'll be able to see how he uses visualizations to tell stories and get information from them. Now, visualization in its educational or conformational role is really a dynamic form of persuasion. The reason why I said is, most of the times we have people making visualizations and they are trying to actually, convince the audience or trying to persuade the audience with the visualizations. There must be a particular moral or learning from that visualization which they're trying to convey to the audience. And with visualizations, we have a better chance of persuading our audience into what we require. And in one of my demos, I've actually got an example of how one visualization convinced the authorities into doing something. Sorry. Now, let me take you through the steps of how to tell stories with your data. The first and foremost thing is you'll have to get your data. Data drives your story and design of your visualization. Once you get your data, ask a question. What do you want to really know about your data? Let your question help you decide which tool to use. That's the third step. And again, in one of my demos, I'm going to be showing you how certain kind of tool was not apt for the question that I asked. So you can also see why choosing the tools is also important. The next step is to explore your data. Search for trends, patterns, and differences, and again, do it across categories, space, and time. Once you have done that, once you have done the digging, have you found the story you have to tell? If you've got your story, then it's time for the final step where you design the visualization and put the finished graphic in place. It's all up to you to share this visualization after that. That said, let's go and have a look at PowerMap. PowerMap, as I told initially, it was formerly codenamed as GeoFlow. PowerMap is a 3D visualization tool for Excel 2013. It's actually an add-in for Excel 2013 which you can download from the internet. I've put the download link for PowerMap in my reference slide. PowerMap is able to plot the geographical data visually, and the best part is you'll be able to analyze data on a 3D globe. It's so unlike the traditional way of spatial analysis that we had, where we just had 2D maps. Right here with PowerMap, we can have 3D visualizations, and another good thing about it is we will be able to create visual tours with cinematic experiences which we can use to share with the others. So this tool is really apt for making presentations or visualizations, and especially for storytelling. Some questions that I might usually get is, what are the versions that I can use PowerMap on? Right now, PowerMap can only be used on Excel 2013 as an add-in to Excel 2013, but we are expecting some announcement from Microsoft as part of their new BI tool, as part of their new tool called Power BI. This should be available on the Power BI sites also. We don't have a lot of information. It's supposed to be coming out within a month or two. So once it comes out, we'll be able to get more details. But as of now, we can only see it in Excel 2013, and again, it's only available in the Professional Pro Plus edition and above, if I'm not wrong. Sorry. Now let's go and have a look at what PowerMap is. So for that, I'll be taking you through a demo. Now to use PowerMap, first of all, we should have it installed. Once you install the add-in, you should be able to see this icon. So this icon would help you. If you see this icon, this means that PowerMap is installed. Once you have this, you need some data to start working with PowerMap. And right now, I've just got some sample data which shows the income of the US states. It's an income data for the US states. As you can see, the state name is kept under the column county name. This is how I got it from the internet. And I got it using Power Query, but you can just find it from the internet, put it into your Excel file. And once you have kept it, you can go to Insert, click on this map. You'll see an option to launch GeoFlow. Click on it. And then you can click on New Tour. If you have already made some visualizations, it would appear here, and it looks like I had already made a tour before, which is what you're seeing here. But for the purpose of this demo, we're just going to be creating a new tour. I click on it, and I would be presented with a different window. So from the window here, you can see that there's an office-like ribbon on the top with some functionalities. On the left-hand side, you can see that this is what we call the tour editor, and this is very similar to PowerPoint in that in PowerPoint, you can see your slides on the left-hand side, and if you want, you can click on the presentation mode and go through each slide one by one. Similarly, for PowerMap, each of the slide, or whatever we used to call slide in PowerPoint, is called as a scene. So you can see here, it's called a scene, and you can create or keep on adding multiple scenes with visualizations, and at the end you can click on Play Tour, and it's going to show all those visualizations one after the other. Now, next to it, you've got the general canvas, and this is where the visualization is going to be displayed. And on the right-hand side, you have what we call as the task panel. And the task panel, you can already see that it's created a layer, and it's asking what is the geographical data that you have to map. So right now, I know that the county name is the column that I want to map. That's the geographical data, and it's actually a state. So once you click on that column, you can see that that column appears in geography, and on the right-hand side, you have some options like whether it's a latitude, longitude, city, country, state, etc. In my case, I know that this is the state province, so I'm clicking on state province and clicking on map it. Now when I click on map it, you can see that all those has been mapped in my canvas here. You can see it's been geographically mapped properly, and this happens through the internet using Bing Maps geocoding services. So first of all, you need internet for this to work, and if you have internet, it will, maybe for the first time it might ask you whether you want to transmit this information over the internet, whether you want it to be geocoded using the Bing Maps. Click on yes, and then you should be able to see this. Once you see this, you've got your mapping correct. Go back to your layer, and you can see something like there's an indicator here which shows that this is the percentage of entries mapped with high confidence. When you click on it, you can see that it gives kind of a geocoding alert where it says, okay, I'm not sure whether this state is this. So it's not highly confident whether it has mapped it correctly, but in our case we can see that, okay, in all of them it's mapped it correctly. It's just that it thinks it might not be correct, but we can see that it's all correct. All of those are the state names. And there are cases where Bing might not even be able to find a match, and in that case it will throw up an error. It will show a red mark, and you can see it in some of my demos where it's not able to find a location for it. So with this, we can see it, and if we find out that there are some states which are not correct, we can go back and modify our data so that we get better results. All right. Now under it, the next step is to make visualizations. Now, right now, let's say I want to see what is the total number of exemptions by state. So I can click on the total number of exemptions, and you can immediately see that I've got a visualization in the form of a column chart. And very easily you can see that California is the highest by the height of the column chart. Now, there are three kinds of visualization in PowerMap. Those are column, which is what you saw right now. You also have bubble. So you can see that the bigger the bubble, the bigger the number of exemptions. And you also have something called as a heat map. The heat map might not be a good representation here, but I could show you a demo later where it is particularly good. So for now, let's just keep it at the column. So you can do that, and if you want to see by category also, if you have, you can put that, and you can see multiple colors. This is like the series for that column. And let me say a quick thing about the navigation before I go further. Since this is 3D, there are two ways of navigation. I mean, one is you can rotate it. So you can see right now I'm just rotating the globe. That is one way of looking at it. And another one is you can pivot it. To pivot it, you can use these. So if you can see that when I click on this, it's actually pivoting it. It's not rotating it, it's pivoting. When rotating it, the globe doesn't change in position. I mean, it just revolves around or rotates around. But when you're pivoting it, you can see it go up and down. So that's nice to know. You can also zoom out as well as zoom in. It just uses Bing Maps geocoding for that. So that is it about the navigation. With that said, let's also have a quick look at what the different let's also have a look at the different icons on the top or the functionalities. So the first one is themes, and by themes it just means that you can change the theme of your map. If you want, you can make it, if you like it dark, this is a way. I mean, you can just change the themes and colors of it. You can't change those individual colors. You know, if you wanted this to be blue, for example, you can't do it. All you can do is change the theme and work with it. Another thing you can do is put map labels. When you click on map labels, you can see, okay, what are the state names and place names. It just gets the name for it. Next thing is the data shapes. Right now, you can see that the shape is kind of rectangular for my column, but if I want it as a different shape, I can do it. Right now, I put it as triangular, and there are a couple of other options. The next two options, which is add scene and play tour, I'll just keep it at the end. The next one is chart. This is a very good feature. If you click on chart, it's going to show you the top 100 locations by the measure that you have selected, which is total number of exemptions. Since it's a 3D globe, right now you can easily find out that California is the top state. But after that, it kind of gets messy. I mean, you can't see properly whether, which one is larger, which one is smaller. So in those cases, it helps to have a chart below it, which shows the top 100 states by, or, whatever states are there by the total number of exemptions. Here you can easily see that California, Texas, New York, Florida, Illinois are like the top 5 states. And if you want, you can also use it as a mode of navigation. For example, let's say you have zoomed in a lot, and from here, you want to go to a particular state, like I want to go to Pennsylvania. In that case, I could just click on the chart and you can see the map moving on to Pennsylvania. Similarly, if I want to go to California, I can click on it and you can see California getting highlighted. So it's a good way of navigation also if you are really zoomed in and you're not able to see all the places in your map. So that is what the chart does for you. The next one is if you want to show all the legends, you can click on it and it's going to show all the legends. But if you don't want it, you might as well as you can click on close and it goes off. Another thing you can do is add a text box, especially let's say if you want to add titles to your chart. Right now I want to add a title which is tax exemptions by state. I can do that and put it up here. And now this works as title for the chart. I can add a text box anywhere. You can see that the text box never changes its position, even though the map can, but the text box will not change position. Now there are cases where you might want to annotate certain columns also, or annotate some points of data. You can do that. For example, if I want to go to North Carolina and add an annotation, I can do that. Right click on it and you're going to get this option which is add annotation. I could just write something like, hey, I live here. So now you've got an annotation and you can see that it moves along with the map. The annotations is tied to the data while the text box is not. It just has a constant place in the canvas. So that is it about text box. Next part is the tour editor. So if you want to hide your tour editor, you can just click on it and it goes invisible. If you want, you can add it. Then the timeline and time decorator is only available when you have a time play access, and I'll talk a little bit about it later. And this is the task panel. If you don't want to see the task panel, this is what you should do. You can click on it and hide the task panel. The next section is you can add a layer also if you want. Let's say right now we just have one layer which is the tax exemptions by state. But if I want, I can add one more layer. Let's say I want to see another measure which is the wages and salaries income. In that case, I could just say, okay, first of all, you'll have to map it. So I'm going to say the county name is the state. I click on map it. Once I click on that, I'm going to say that my next measure is going to be wages and salaries. And let's say I want to have it as a bubble map. So right now you can see I've got two layers, the column which is for the tax exemptions and the bubble is for the wages and salaries. So this is how you can have two layers, add layers. Next icon is if you want to refresh the data. Let's say there has been some change in your model or some change in your data and you just want to refresh it, click on it and it's going to refresh. The next icon is also another interesting one. Let's say find location. Let's say you've got a lot of details in your map and you just want to find a location. Let's say I want to go to Charlotte, and when I click on find, you can see that the map goes to that location, which is Charlotte. So this can also be used for navigation. Let's say if you want to quickly jump from one place to the other, this is what you can do. And the last part is copy screen. So if you want, you can, let's say if you want to share this with your peers, you can just take a screenshot of it by clicking on copy screen, and then you can paste it anywhere. I mean, I'm just pasting it into Paint, and you can see this is what the copy screen does. It just captures the canvas. All right. Now that was about the top ribbon. Now let's get a little bit more into detail with the layers, with the task panel. So the first thing you have there is you've got three small icons on the top. The first one is what we call the layer manager, and when you click on this, you would be able to see all the layers that you have defined. So right now you can see that we have defined two layers, and you can control the visibility of the layers by clicking on this first icon. So if I click on this, you can see that layer 1 has become invisible. If I click on the second one, you can see that the second layer has become invisible. So this is where you can click and change the visibility. Next to it, you have got this gear icons. If you click on that, it's going to go to the properties for that layer. Let's say I want to go to the properties for the first layer. I can click on that. Let's say I want to rename it as total exemptions layer. I would be able to do that. Under it, I can also modify things like if I want to increase the height of the columns, or if I want to increase the thickness of the columns, or if I just want to lock the current scale. Currently, if you zoom in and zoom out, you can see that the size of the layer actually increases or decreases. But if you don't want it to do that, you can click on the lock current scale, and no matter when you increase or decrease, the size is going to remain the same. Right now, the size is locked for only the layer 1. So you can see that the layer 2 kind of increases and decreases, which is the bubble, but the column still remains in the same size. So that is what lock current scale is being used for. You can also decide whether to show zeros, show negatives, or show nulls. That's something you can do. Now getting back to the layer, now you can see that we have renamed it, which is the total exemptions layer. And for layer 2, I can say it is the wages layer. Now you can see these are both the layers that we have. The next section is, this is where you determine what is the geographical field that you want to map it by, and what are the things that you want to display on the map. So right now you can see that we have mapped it by the county names, and these are the things that we have displayed on the map. You can choose between the different layers that you have and edit them individually if you want. The third section is just the layer properties. So it's the same thing that we just saw by clicking on the gear icon. Also, if you want to add a layer, you can click on this icon and add a layer, which is very similar to what you have here on the top. You can either click here to add a layer or click here to add a layer. You can click on the cross marks to delete a layer also if you want. That's also possible. Now, the interesting thing, or one of the benefits of using Power Map, is the ability to create cinematic experiences, or the tours. So for adding tours, you need to have different scenes. So let's say in the first scene I just have a tax exemptions by state. I could add further scenes where in the second scene, let's say I'm just displaying the wages layer, and I can add a third scene where I display both of them together if I want. You'll be seeing better examples of this later, but just for fun's sake, I'm showing you how to create tours. And again, you do have some options to create animations within each of those tours, within each of the scenes. And for doing that, hover your mouse on top of the scene and then click on the gear icon. When you click on that, you can see, okay, for how many seconds do you want to see this particular scene? Let's keep it at the default 6. And what is the transition duration? That's 3 seconds. There are some effects also where it kind of circle, and you can show the effect speed also, whether you want it to be fast or slow. So similarly, let me put something for the second one too. We'll just change the effect to figure 8. And for the third one, we're going to change its effect to, let's say, flyover. Now once we have done this, we can click on play to, and then it's going to show us the proper tour. You can see the animation, it's already kind of circling, and this is the first scene. Now it goes to the second scene where we are able to see the wages, and it's also got some animation to it. And now it's going to be going to the third scene where it's got both of them together. So this is how you can create like a very basic tour. And another functionality which I forgot to tell you is you can add a time play axis, but for that you need a date field. Right now in my data, I don't have a date field, but if I had, I could just drag and drop it to the time section of this time box, and then you could play it across time to see how the data moved over time, which is interesting to know. I actually have examples of it in my demo, so let's actually proceed to some demos. So the first demo I'm going to be showing you is a sneak preview of the Jon Snow's Cholera map. This is the first of the 3 demos that I have prepared, telling stories with Excel Power Map. And to actually give a little bit of context to this story, I have to tell you both the time as well as the venue of the story. The time period for this story is the summer of 1850. And the venue is London. It was during this time that London was fast facing a major influx of migrant population, and there were a lot of people coming into London. London was fast growing into one of the world's first modern cities. But being the first, it also had its disadvantages. For example, some of the things that we take for granted, which is the basic sanitary as well as garbage disposal systems, were not present. All of this garbage, sewage, everything was dumped on the streets, and all of this was causing London to fast become the breeding ground for a terrifying disease which no one knew how to cure. Right now we knew that the disease was cholera, but during those days people didn't know. And they used to think that this disease spreads through the foul, stinking air, which was known as the miasmic theory. But there was a local physician called Dr. Jon Snow. He always thought that it can't be because of the foul air. I don't think this disease is spread through air. And he tried to convince or persuade the London authorities that, it can't be through air, it must be through water supply. I've got a hunch, maybe we should do something about it. But the London authorities did not believe him because he had no data or nothing to prove his point. So that is when, there was this big, great cholera outbreak in 1850, and Dr. Jon Snow decided to get the data. It might be, interesting to actually start looking at the different steps that we had when we were looking at the different steps to tell stories using data. So the first step was collecting your data. Dr. Jon Snow did that. He went to places, collected the number of deaths associated with that place, and I'm actually reproducing his adventure using Excel Power Map. So right now you can see there's this table where I've got all the deaths associated with those places. And since Dr. Johnston had a hunch that it had something to do with water supplies, he also got, the water supplies for that particular place, the nearest water supply. So these are the pumps and the location at which they are located. The next thing is he asked a question. Of course, his question was, is cholera being spread through air or is it being spread through water? Now, I try to visualize it first using PowerView. PowerView is also a data visualization tool that we have in Excel 2013. It's also available in SharePoint. I first visualized it using PowerView, and I couldn't get much information from it. I mean, the blue dots are the places where the deaths happened, and the red dots are where the pumps are. Seeing this, I couldn't find any pattern or analysis. So maybe this tool wasn't appropriate for this kind of analysis. But then I took Excel Power Map and I started keeping this data. I mean, I reproduced this data using Excel Power Map. And just by doing it, just by putting a heat map visualization, I was able to see a pattern. As you can see from this visualization, there was a big red spot in the center, which means there's a higher number of deaths associated in this area. Once I got this detail, I also made another layer for the water supplies. And when I did that, I could see that there's this particular pump, which is the Broad Street pump, which was right on top of the area which caused the maximum number of deaths. So it looked like there was a correlation, and this is what Dr. Johnston also found out. So many people actually stop with this. They see a correlation and start spreading stories. I mean, he could have easily gone and said, hey, look, this Broad Street pump is on top of this area which is causing maximum number of deaths. So it looks like that is the reason. Now, if you do that, you'll be really biasing your, you're actually not showing the full data. You're actually biasing your audience. The reason behind it is, if you look into this data, there are also some outliers. For example, there's this place in the map, which is pretty close to the Broad Street pump, but still has a fewer number of deaths. Also, there's this area on the map which is pretty far from the Broad Street pump, but still has some considerable amount of deaths. So Dr. Johnston went ahead and started investigating the outliers. He went to this particular area and he found that it was a monastery, and when he checked the source of water supply, he found out that the local monks were just drinking beer, beer which they were actually making. And since beer is fermented, it didn't carry the disease-causing bacteria. Now, the same thing here. He went to this particular place and checked their source of water supply. And what he found out was there was actually a cart which was supplying water from this area, from the Broad Street pump to this area, and everyone was using that. So that was the reason of a larger number of deaths here. With this information in hand, he went to the London authorities and showed them this data. And this actually persuaded them to close down the Broad Street pump, and history says that it helped to control the outbreak of cholera. So this was a very interesting case, actually a live example from history, where a visualization was used to persuade an authorities into action. Now, this is my first demo. Now, for the other two demos, I was asking questions to myself. I mean, the next demo that I would be presenting would be based on a question that I had. Are refugees flooding industrialized countries? The other day, I was reading an article from an Australian newspaper where the Prime Minister was overly concerned about refugees coming into Australia. And when I was reading it, I had this notion in my mind, that refugees are flooding industrialized countries, and just reading that newspaper article, it just seemed to strengthen my own assumption. But being in this field of data analytics, I thought, why not actually have a look at the data? So I got some data from UNHCR, the refugee data for the past 10 years, and I visualized them using Excel Power Map. So you can see in Excel right now, I've got for the last 10 years, what is the country or territory of residence for the refugees. So this is like the current or the present country in which the refugees are living. Then I've got the origin of the refugees, from which country they came from, and then the year I got from 2001 till 2012, and how many were those. So with that, this is what I was able to come up with. So you can already see that I've made a Power Map tour, and I'm going to be playing it. So right now you can see the refugees and how which countries are contributing to the highest number of refugees, and you can easily see across time that it's this particular country, which is Afghanistan actually, which has been giving the highest number of refugees. And just to find the top number of countries, I made this chart on the top, on the bottom left, and you can see that the top countries are Afghanistan, Somalia, Iraq, Syria, and Sudan. These are the top 5 countries which are contributing to the highest number of refugees. Once I got that, I thought, why not investigate, what could be the reason behind the increasing number of refugees? My assumption was that it must be the political turmoil. I mean, the political conditions within these countries must be really unstable, and that is the reason why refugees must be, increasing over the years. So to put that assumption to test, I got another piece of data, which is the peace index. And once I got the peace index, which shows how politically stable a country's government is, I just made 2 classifications. I classified the top 20 countries, which are shown as blue bubbles, and also the bottom 30 countries, which are shown as yellow bubbles. So when I got this kind of an information, I was able to see that in the areas where the highest number of refugees are, it's usually the bottom 30 countries. As you can see in Somalia, you can see in Iraq, they belong to the bottom 30 countries, and this is out of the 160 odd countries that I pulled in from. So that looks, it looked like my assumption was correct. It's common sense. So refugees seem to be originating most from where political situations are not that stable. With that information in hand, what I thought is maybe I should start looking at the top countries one by one and see what exactly happened over the time period. So right now you can see this is for all the countries. The year is 2006, and how the number of refugees are increasing or decreasing over time. So next I thought maybe I should go and look at Afghanistan on its own, so we can get an idea of what's been happening in that country. So now you can see we are going to be focusing on Afghanistan, and you can see in 2000 and 2001 there was this big increase in the number of refugees, and after that it started reducing. I was able to correlate the reduction from 2001 till 2009. 2001 is when the Taliban government got toppled, so it seems like the number of refugees reduced after that. But in 2008, 2009, it again started increasing, and I could correlate it with Taliban actually coming back into power, leading a shadow government in some parts of the country. And also in 2010, President Obama announced the deployment of another 30,000 soldiers. So that actually also increased the number of refugees. After that, I went to Iraq. In Iraq, you can see that till 2006, 2007, the number of refugees were considerably less. But in 2006, you can almost see a 4 times increase in the number of refugees, as you can see right now on the screen. 2006, 2007 increased, there was a lot of increase in refugees, and I could correlate it with a civil war which was happening in Iraq at that time. So just by seeing the data, I was able to understand, there's something going wrong with the political situation just by seeing that data. Once I got this, I started looking at who are the countries that are giving asylum to these refugees. And I kind of expected a top Western industrialized country to be the host, to be the top host for these refugees. But when I looked at the data, it again surprised me. It seemed Pakistan, Iran, and Germany, and Pakistan and Iran are the top 2 countries which are offering asylum to refugees. Germany is 3rd on the list, actually, which is an industrialized Western country. So now I started looking one by one. Where are the refugees from Afghanistan going into? I can see that the refugees from Afghanistan are going into Iran and Pakistan mainly. So you can see from the chart also, almost 99% of the refugees are going into Pakistan and Iran, which is a neighboring country of Afghanistan. There is Germany is third on the list, but it's so small, it's less than 1% of the data. Okay. Then I decided to look at Iraq. Where are the refugees from Iraq going into? Again, I could see that the refugees are going into the neighboring countries like Syria, Jordan, and Iran, which is again kind of stunning. I mean, the fourth one on the list was Germany, but again, it looks like it's just 1% or 2% of the refugees, considerably lesser. So there looks like a pattern was arising here. Refugees seem to be going into the neighboring countries. And to confirm it, I looked at the third country in the list, which is Somalia. And as you can see from the map, again, the refugees are going into Kenya, Yemen, Ethiopia. Those are the top 3 countries. Again, you can see that the refugees are actually going to the neighboring countries. So with this information, and it's the last 10 official information from the UNHCR, it seemed to debunk the assumption or the notion that I had that refugees are actually flooding industrialized countries. So then I thought Germany was number 4 on the list in terms of giving asylum to refugees. So I thought, okay, since it's an industrialized country, where are those refugees coming from? I can see again that the refugees are coming from the nearby region. For example, in Germany, the top 2 countries were Turkey and Serbia. The third country was Iraq. You do have some people from Iraq also, but you can see it's roughly in the same region. So with this, I was able to understand that it's actually a myth. Refugees are flooding industrialized countries. And I was also able to find later that the available statistical evidence confirms that most refugees flee to neighboring countries and they thus remain within their region of origin. Indeed, the major refugee-generating regions hosted an average between 83 and 90% of their refugees. The UNHCR estimates that some 1.6 million refugees, which is just 14% of the total 11.4 million, live outside their region of origin. So this was good to know. I was able to get information, and I was able to pass this information also to others in the form of a story. All right. So that was my second demo where I had a question and I was trying to find an answer to it. Now the third and last demo I have would be a demo based on the London riots. Now for those of us who are not familiar, the London riots happened in 2011, and during that time I was actually working in London, and this riots happened very close to the place where I was staying. So I was kind of interested in it, and there was a lot of debate going on during that time. The people said that these riots happened in London because the people are poor and they are like really not happy with the government, things like that. While the government said that no, the riots didn't happen because the people were poor. It's just that there were some hooligans who were just bent upon taking advantage of the situation and trying to vandalize the country. So I decided to have a test, Again, I went through the data. I got some information from the internet where I have the riot locations, and I decided to visualize it using Power Map. So what I did is, the riots happened from, I think it was the 4th of August till it happened for a week. So I decided to visualize the riots by the location first. So you can see that the majority of the riots are happening around London. This area is London. And then it wasn't a localized event. You can see it happening in different parts of the country also. So after that, I decided, let's see how the riots progressed across time. So you can see on the 4th of August, it was just a single incident in London. And after that, on the 6th, it had spread to more places in London. You can see by time it's spreading across London, and it's also spreading across the different parts of the country. So definitely it was not localized. And you can see that it happened across places, not only in London, but in places like Birmingham, Liverpool, Manchester, etc. Now with that information, I thought, okay, now let's put it to test. I also got some data on the poverty indices of the counties, and I classified them as the bottom 100, bottom 25, middle 100, top 100 counties. So once I superimposed that as a layer, I could find out that there was some truth in what the government was also saying. it looked like there was some riots happening in rich areas. Okay, interesting. But at the same time, I realized that, the right locations are not what you need to check. Maybe you need to be looking at the location from where the suspects came from. Because it could happen that the suspects are traveling from a distant place and going to another place to actually loot. So what I did is I got some data from the court where they released the suspect informations, and I was able to map it using Excel Power Map. And once I did that and then superimposed the poverty indices on top of it, I was able to find some sort of truth in what the people also said, because particularly in areas from Liverpool and Manchester, I was able to see that the suspects were coming from poor localities. So it was interesting to see both points and be able to visualize it. But here, I'm not making any political statement because I'm not really sure about this piece of data that I got. And the reason why I've said that is I know for sure that there was a riot happening in the area where I live in, which is called Stratford. It's pretty close to the Olympic Stadium. And when I clicked on it, I couldn't find that particular event. And then I found out the reason is because, as the geocoding alert says, it was only able to geocode 63% of the entries with high confidence. And you can already see that there are some data here for which it was not able to find resolution. And the reason is I told that this was going to be a address when I was geocoding it, and you can actually see some latitude and longitude creeping in the data. It's just that the data is not validated properly. So once I went back to the data and validated it, I was actually able to find that particular incident that I was looking at. It was given as 51.498.0.067, and I was able to get the address, which is 4 Woolwich Manor Way in London Borough of Newham. So again, this was an interesting way to visualize that, and yeah, this was an interesting way of looking at the data and sharing that information as part of a story. You can already see that with these 3 demos, I was able to give a narration of what was happening with the visualization. So Power Map demonstrates itself well as a tool through which you can tell stories with your data. With that, we have come to the end of the session, and to summarize it, you can see that initially I was talking about how or what are the major steps you have to use when you're telling stories with data. We had a good introduction to Excel Power Map. We saw some of its functionalities, features, and after that we also went through 3 demos through which we saw how to tell stories using Excel Power Map. And with that, we have come to the end of the session, and I throw the floor open for questions. I think we have got another 5 minutes. So Melissa, is there any questions for me?
Yeah, Jason, there is. Great session and content today. Thank you so much. So let's go ahead and start off. If you save the Excel file and Excel services in SharePoint, will the map still display?
If you save the Excel in SharePoint, the map will not display. The reason is right now the only platform available is through Excel. I mean, Power View would actually display in SharePoint 2013, but Power Map will not. So the tool that I was showing today, in short, it will not display in SharePoint as of now, but we never know which direction Microsoft is going, and we'll have to wait for the Power BI sites to see whether there's going to be any new addition to this. Right now, this tool is in community preview mode, so it's not the full version, so expect a lot more features to be added to it soon.
Okay, and then the next question is, can a tour be exported to PowerPoint?
Again, the answer is you can't export it to PowerPoint, but you can take a screenshot of it and paste it into PowerPoint. That is one thing. Or you can use video recording tools like Camtasia and start recording the videos and then share it through other mediums.
Okay, and let's see, question. It says you apparently need internet connectivity to use this tool. Once you've created a tour, does it still require internet connectivity to play later?
yes, it will still require internet connectivity to play data. The reason is it geocodes it when you open it. So there's no offline access to it. You need to have internet access to view the presentation.
Okay. What's the main difference between PowerMap and PowerView with BinMap?
Sorry, could you repeat the last part?
It says with BIN map.
I'm not really sure of what a bin map is, but the major difference between PowerView and PowerMap is, first of all, in PowerView you just have a 2D map, while in PowerMap you have got a 3D map functionality. Second thing is, PowerView is much beyond just maps. You can also have your charts, you can have scatter charts, you can have tables, things like that. While PowerMap is just about maps. So that's also another difference. And again, PowerView, right now you can put it in SharePoint or you can have it in the Excel environment. But for PowerMap, right now you just have the Excel environment.
Okay. Andy actually clarified and he said BinMap might have been Bing Map.
Yes, it could be Bing Maps. Okay. So, okay.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Andy. So with Bing Maps, again, you would not be able to come up with these set of visualizations unless you do some major .NET coding behind the scenes. But here you would have seen how easy it was to geocode. I mean, you just give in your country name or your state name, and PowerMap does it automatically for you. So, but behind the scenes, both PowerView and PowerMap uses Bing Maps geocoding service.
Okay, and Michael gave you a kudo. He said great presentation and he loves maps. But he says, why cannot you map to a latitude and longitude? Do you always need an address?
No, you can actually use latitude and longitude, and there are a couple of demos that I have where I'm using that. Actually, the first demo that I showed, which is the Jon Snow Cholera map, was done using latitude and longitude. So yes, you can use latitude and longitude to do maps in both PowerMap as well as PowerView.
Okay, and this question says, if you are mapping sensitive or private data, is it secure given that you need internet access? Good question.
Good question. And again, the answer is kind of depends, but I would go ahead and do it just because it's only the address that I'm passing over the internet, nothing else. It's not the data. And again, the reason is just because you need to geocode it.
Okay, and then one of the questions says, how did you create the, and I'm not sure if I'm saying this word right, but it says indices? I-N-D-I-C?
The poverty indices, yeah. Again, I got the data from the poverty indices for the London riots. I got it from the internet. And once I got that, it was by county names. So it was the county names of London.
Okay, and then this question says, for the title, can you change it during the tour?
The title, can I change it during the tour? I can put a different title for each of my scenes. So if you put a different title and if you play the tour, then you're going to see different titles. And that is what I did in my second demo, which is the refugee data. If you would have noticed, you would have seen that, that the titles are changing with each slide. With each scene, yep. So you can do that, that's answer.
Okay, and here's a comment plus a question. It says, I've had nothing but problems with PowerMap on a proxy server. Do you know anything about MS fixing this issue? It's well documented on forums.
Sorry, I don't know about that issue, so, but I could actually look into that issue for you. So if you could actually send me an email, or you could just send a tweet, or you can just come to my blog, send a message, or just use my email address. I can surely look into that issue for you.
Okay, great. And Kevin said, yes, he will do that. Perfect. All right, guys, that wraps us up for today. And again, that also wraps us up for a full week of Self-Service BI. We appreciate everyone that came out for extra days. And as a reminder, our sessions are recorded and will be made available by the end of today. So Jason, thank you for joining us. We hope to have you back again. Great presentation. And
Thank you, Melissa.
You're welcome, and very nice to meet you too. And we will see everyone back next week for more training on the T's, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah. Thank you guys for attending my session too.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Take care, Jason. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.